Hello, everyone, and welcome to an encore presentation of Divine Femininity United. I'm your girl, Dr. Bianca Miss B. Lee, and we are here once again to redo. We all have to redo chapters 8 and 9 here. We got to do it again because on Sunday when we were starting these chapters, I had a very serious family emergency to the point where today, I must say, my family and I are sitting in the greatest of gratitude because a family member of ours, an immediate family member of ours, could have been gone right now. We could be planning their funeral as we speak, but we are not. And we're so grateful. During our last live, I had a person banging on my door, yelling my name outside of my home because of the severity of the matter. And this family member had to be airlifted to the hospital. And it was very, very real. It was very scary. And once again, I am standing in gratitude because this family member is alive. Um, it was so real. You know what I mean? We hear about these freak accidents and things like that all the time, but we don't realize how real it is. We know it's real, but we don't realize how real it is until it comes literally to our front door. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, everyone went into action. We went into prayer. We already, call things that be not as though they were. we went to war. Do you hear me? Went to war because this family member had no pulse for almost 4 minutes. 4 minutes. To us, that's a small amount of time. But when you are not here anymore, that's a long time. That's a long time, man. So, oh man, when I tell you, standing in full gratitude, I'm so grateful to the Most High um, for everything, good, bad, ugly, or indifferent. I'm grateful. We're grateful. Um, it was real. And as we speak right now, that family member has been discharged from the hospital, is undergoing physical therapy and things like that right now. So all is well. All is well. My goodness. I will say this, man. In this scenario, of course, it happened directly to that family member, but there's always everything in every circumstance that happens in life. We have to keep in mind, you all, things happen for us, never to us. They happen for us, never to us. And when we keep that understanding, we don't see it from a victimhood standpoint. You know what I mean? We've never been a victim. Never, ever. We've always been a student because every circumstance that occurs has somewhere in it, no matter how grotesque the circumstance, no matter how horrific, no matter how traumatic it is, there is somewhere laced and interwoven in the fabrics of that situation a lesson to take away, wisdom that is attached if we choose to see it from an objective point of view as opposed to a subjective point of view. You understand? Man. We are airing on all platforms. Clubhouse, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube and Twitter. And we have someone on Clubhouse, Miss Taishiba. How are you, Miss Taishiba? She stated, I just said that same thing to a group of men last night. Listen, come on, synchronicity. We're all in alignment. You know what I'm saying? I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked that you said the same thing because we're all, living as one, all of that. We all are here living the same life from different perspectives. Living literally the same life from different perspectives. You hear me? So I don't doubt it. We're in alignment. That's amazing. I realized I just sat. My backyard is my place of meditation and things like that. Nature to me is where I go to connect. I can do it from anywhere, but it's something about that nature. My goodness. Taishiba also says, actually, it was 4 to 5 a.m. this morning. Yes, ma'am. You know them the what do you call it? The Nebhet hours, the hours of spirit. You know, when we are 100% able to connect without interference. I usually stay up. Um, I usually stay up overnight when the world is sleeping because I hear better, I see better, I connect better. You know what I mean? Without interference. I usually do that. I promise you, man. When I tell you, absolutely love it. I do. It is something about those hours of quiet, those hours of spirit, those hours of connecting. It is something about that, boy. I'm telling you, you can't put a price on it at all. But I will say, in my sitting in nature, I'm gonna say this, and then we're gonna get started with the book. But in my sitting with nature, in nature, I sat there and I said, we really, as a whole, I don't think we really realize how significant our life is to this existence. I don't think we really understand rather. That's deeper than understanding. Understand where we are internally connected to the understanding of us being significant. Our very life, our very breath, our very being significant. To feel as if you are insignificant is to demean your presence and your purpose here in this life. And it's a robbery of from us, you know what I'm saying? Because we are here and are in need of your presence and your um purposes and your life, your very air. We need that in order to accomplish what it is that we have to do and to contribute into this life. No matter whether I'm in Georgia or you're on the continent of Antarctica, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We are all living one life, of one as one life as one, of one. And so your life is very significant to my life. I am you, you are me. There is no disconnect whatsoever, although society tries to, you know, form a divide. That's why it's imperative to know who you are. Know who you are. Know who you are. And don't ever allow somebody else to tell you otherwise. Tashiba says, I can honestly say I wrestle with feeling significant at times, but there's a mantra that persists within me that begs to differ. Listen to me and listen to that mantra, because that is your inner being, that is your higher self, that is your most divine, sacred self, trying to connect with you and telling you, don't you dare believe the thoughts that your mind thinks. You got to keep in mind, your mind only has a lifespan of from beginning from the moment that you entered into this realm. Your mind only holds what you have learned since being in this realm, in the 3D existence of this earth. Your heart space, your spirit space, your true self holds all things, all knowings, all of it. So it is imperative not to allow your very limited human brain to instruct you, who is an infinite being, your real self, on who you are. Because it's only going to process and filter that through the deposits that were put in it since the day you were born. That's not a lot of time, and that's certainly not a lot of information when you're comparing it to the infinite intelligent one, or the infinite intelligence of all that resides in your spirit space. So don't ever filter your significance and who you are through the filter of your brain. It don't know you. It only knows what it's experienced in this iteration of you. It does not know the whole of you. Your spirit does. Connect with that part of you and you will know you. And you will also know your significance in this life. Okay. And when you know that, then you understand that these flowers that are blooming around us are not blooming just to be blooming. They're blooming because of your existence. The trees around you, they're not swaying just to be swaying. They're swaying because of your existence. The birds are singing because of your existence. That's how significant you are. That's how important you are to this thing we call life. Know that. Know that. Own that. Stand in that. Because that is the gospel truth. Okay? Understand that everything that was created by the Creator's hands was created with a purpose attached to it, significance attached to it, importance attached to it, divinity, sacredness attached to it. Okay? That be you. That be you. Okay? Understand that. Understand that. Feel it, know it, connect to it, align with it, be it. Don't become it, be it. We're not human becomings, we're human beings. Being, be. Okay? Tashiba said, it wasn't until roughly 2 weeks ago that I reached a place in life to fully accept the mantra from within, and I'm now on a journey to exercise my purpose, whatever that may be. Still connecting the dots. Let me tell you, you've been in purpose 100% of the time. You've been in purpose. I give an analogy, example all the time, and I just gave it this morning to somebody I was speaking on the phone with. Prime example. If you're going to a hardware store, okay, you know how when you park in the hardware store parking lot in the front of the hardware store, let's say Lowe's, Home Depot, whatever the case, all the front of that store always has glass fronts. You know what I mean? So when you're walking up to the door, typically you're able to see yourself walking to the door, okay, through the glass. But you notice as you're walking to the door, you notice that somebody is about maybe 5 paces walking behind you. Okay. So when you get to the door, you grab the door, and instead of you just walking in and leaving the person behind you grab the door and you step back, you open the door, you see that they're coming, and you smile at them, you reach, extend your hand out to them and say, listen, go ahead. I'm holding the door for you. No, I insist. You go right ahead. Thank you so much. You have an amazing day. It is my pleasure. Great to see you. Have a great day. You go inside of the store, that person go their way, you go your way, you go grab your tools or whatever you came to purchase, and you going on about your business. Probably never going to see this person another day in your life. Okay? That's from your perspective. Let me give you the other person's perspective. That morning, they woke up in a deep depression, as they have every morning for the last several years. They have no family. They have no friends. They are not connected to anybody, and no one checks on them. To the point where they feel insignificant themselves. They feel forgotten. They feel unseen. No one likes them. No one loves them. No one cares about them. They feel that their life matters not. No one sees them. They're invisible to the world. So they decide that day, I'm going to end it. So they need some rope to do so. Where do they go? The hardware store. So they see you walk into the door in front of them. They're not even caring. Their mind is set on grabbing rope because no one cares. I'm insignificant. No one likes me. No one loves me. No one cares about me. No one sees me, whatever. If I do this, I'm going to do the world a favor. Only for them to walk to the door, and they see you holding the door open for them, reaching out to them, saying, come on in. It is my pleasure. It's good to see you. Good morning. What a smile. What a face. Handsome. Come on in. It's my pleasure. Of course, not a problem. You have an amazing day. And you walk through that door. And once again, that person, they think to themselves, wow, that person saw me. That person opened the door for me. They cared about me. They gave me time. They gave me special treatment. Wow. They made me feel seen, heard, special. Wow. And in that moment, that person changes their mind. They go out of the door and they live the rest of their life happy because they chose to, because you gave them light and reignited theirs. That, my love, is purpose. That's purpose. It doesn't have to be a big grand old display. It could be something as minuscule as that right there. Small to you, but that small thing you just did, being at the right place at the right time, saved that person's life. That's purpose. So that's like I said, don't say I'm becoming, like I'm going to, and I'm on a journey to my purpose. Honey, when you woke up this morning, you was already in it. You was already in it. Okay? That's the beauty. That's the beauty. And that is the significance of your life. That is the significance of your very breath. That's what that means. Okay? And that goes for any and everybody who's under the sound of my voice. Understand, you are here in purpose, on purpose, for a reason. Stand on that reason. We may not even know that we're in our purpose. Just smiling and waving at you, going out to the mailbox. You wave at your neighbor. That's purpose. Right? You reach and you see somebody reaching on the top shelf and they're too short to get it. You reach up and grab it. That's purpose. You give somebody the buggy at the grocery store and you get the next one. That's purpose. You help somebody across the street. That's purpose. Right? That's purpose. It's as little as that. Our objective here in this life, it's not crazy, Mack, big or not. It's not all of that. It's not all of that at all. Lauryn Hill said it. It could all be so simple, but we'd rather make it hard. What it is our objective is to learn better, make better choices, be better to ourselves and to each other, perfect our loving of ourselves and of others, experience this thing called life. This is a human experience. We are not a human, a body having a soul. We are a soul that has a body for this iteration, for this experience. We are to live big, live with passion, laugh, love, all of that. Experience this thing called life. Experience this human experience. But at the same time, remember who you are. Align with who you are. Stand in who you are. Don't fall prey to this human experience. It's just that, an experience. Okay? In this experience, there are lessons to learn. Learn the lessons. Learn the lessons while experiencing the experience. Live the experience. Embody the experience. Enjoy the experience. Learn in the experience. But remember, it is an experience. So don't get caught up in it. Because this too shall pass. Right? Get out of it what you're supposed to get out of it and go on to the next. That's it. That's all. While also remembering who you are, being who you are, standing in who you are, aligning with who you are, not who you're becoming. Because you already are everything you need to be right now. You already completed right now. Right now. Be that, own that, tap into that, and demonstrate from that. Okay? That's what that is. That's what that is. And when we get slight reminders, like the experience that my family just went through this past Sunday, when we get those reminders of life and the beauty of it, Man, if you do it well, then you take that and it's a jolt. It's a jolt. It's a come on now, snap out of it. Let's get this thing rolling. It's a reigniting. You know what I'm saying? A refocusing. That's what it is. We ain't gotta learn from our own experience. We can learn from other people's experiences, okay? Okay? Seriously. So everything is a learning. Everything is a learning thing. Everything you're a student to all of it. You're a student. Let the situations teach you. Let the people that you come across teach you. That's what it's there for. Learn better, be better, do better, experience while loving, loving, loving. Big, big, big. Okay? All righty, you all. With that being said, we are reading through the amazing, amazing book called The Shack, you all. I know there's a movie out here. I'm not sure if you ever watched the movie, but this book is it. Listen, this book is something serious, and to know that this book is depicted from true events. This is someone's real story. William Paul Young is the author, but he's the writer. I'll say that, but he ghost wrote the book. Mackenzie Allen Philips is the main character, and it's his story, his experience. The only thing is, he didn't have the writing skills to write it out. He asked William, who is his best friend in real life, to write it for him. Okay, but he had to get the story out. Okay, because in it is so many. Oh God, it's so many nuggets. We're just at chapter 8 and 9, and so I'm gonna read this story. I'm gonna read this book. And then tomorrow we'll be back. Our regular scheduled hours and days are Sundays and Tuesdays. Sunday at 5, Tuesday at 8 p.m., both p.m. Okay. So to not have to repeat the chapters from Sunday, this past Sunday, on tomorrow, I want to stay on schedule, and I want to move forward to the other two chapters tomorrow. So I wanted to do an encore presentation today and reread the previous two so that we can have a consistent flow of what we're doing and all of the things. Okay. At any point, as Miss Tashiba is doing on Clubhouse, if you have something to say, feel free to use the comment section. Use the chat. Like I said, we're airing live on Clubhouse, Facebook, Instagram, um, LinkedIn, YouTube, the whole one too. Okay. So audio only on Clubhouse, video on the other platform. So utilize the chat, utilize the comments. That's what it's there for. And then I'll gradually, every so often, look up and see what you said, and I'll give voice to your words. Okay. Also, at the end of the segment, I'm going to tell you how you can acquire your own free copy. It's an ebook copy of the book that we're reading. Everything that we read collectively is always readily available for you, free of cost, of course. We are a nonprofit organization, so donations are welcome. However, they are not required for you to get the book. So if you want the book for your own reading and you want to read at your own pace, feel free. I don't mind. Request the book. I'll tell you how to do that at the end of the segment. But in the meantime and in between time, here we go. This is chapter 8, entitled A Breakfast of Champions. There's a quote here by an unknown author, and it reads, "Growth means change, and change involves risk, stepping from the known to the unknown." When he reached his room, Mack discovered that his clothes, which he had left back in the car, were either folded on top of the dresser or hung in the open closet. To his amusement, he also found a Gideon's Bible in the nightstand. He opened the window wide to let the outside night flow freely in, something that Nan never tolerated at home because of her fear of spiders and anything else crawly and creepy. Snuggling like a small child deep inside the heavy down comforter, he had only made it through a couple verses before the Bible somehow left his hand. The lights somehow turned off, and someone kissed him on the cheek, and he was lifting gently off the ground in a flying dream. Those who have never flown this way might think those who believe they do rather daft, but secretly they are probably at least a little envious. He hadn't had a flying dream in years, not since the great sadness had descended. But tonight, Mack flew high into the starlit night, the air clear and cool, but not uncomfortable. He soared above lakes and rivers, crossing an ocean coast and a number of reef-rimmed islets. As odd as it sounds, Mack had learned inside his dream to fly like this, to lift off the ground supported by nothing, no wings, no aircraft of any sort, just himself. Beginning flights were usually limited to a few inches, due almost mostly to fear or, more accurately, a dread of falling. Stretching his flights to a foot or two and eventually higher increased his confidence, as did his discovery that crashing wasn't painful at all, but only a slow motion bounce. In time, he learned to ascend into the clouds, cover vast distances, and land gently. As he soared at will over rugged mountains and crystal white seashores, reveling in the mist wonder of dream flight, suddenly something grabbed him by the ankle and tore him out of the sky. In a matter of seconds, he was dragged from the heights and violently thrown face first onto a muddy and deeply rutted road. Thunder shook the ground and rain instantly drenched him to the bone. And there it came again, lightning illuminating the face of his daughter as she soundlessly screamed, "Daddy!" and then turned to run into the darkness, her red dress visible only for a few brief flashes and then gone. He fought with all his strength to extricate himself from the mud and the water, only succeeding in being sucked deeper into its grasp. And just as he was being taken under the woke, he woke up with a gasp. With his heart racing and his imagination anchored in the nightmare's images, it took a few moments for Mack to realize it had only been a dream. But even as it faded from his consciousness, the emotions didn't go with it. The dream had provoked the great sadness, and before he could even get out of bed, he was once again fighting his way through the despair that had devoured too many of his days. With a grimace, he looked around the room in a dull gray of the growing dawn that snuck in around the window shades. This wasn't his bedroom. Nothing looked or felt familiar. Where was he? Think, Mac, think. Then he remembered. He was still at the shack with those three interesting characters, all of whom thought they were God. This can't really be happening, Mac grunted as he pulled his feet out of bed and sat on its edge and with his head in his hands. He thought back to the previous day and again entertained the fear that he was going crazy. As he had never been much of a touchy-feely person, Papa, whoever she was, made him nervous, and he had no idea what to make of Sarayu. He admitted to himself that he liked Jesus a lot, but he seemed the least godlike of the three. He let out a deep, heavy sigh. And if God was really here, why hadn't he taken his nightmares away? Sitting in a quandary he decided wasn't helping, so he found his way to the bathroom where, to his amusement, everything he needed for a shower had been carefully laid out for him. He took his time in the warmth of the water, took his time shaving, and back in the bedroom, took his time dressing. The penetrating and alluring aroma of coffee drew his eye to the steaming cup waiting for him on the end table by the door. Taking a sip, he opened the shades and stood looking out through his bedroom window onto the lake, which he had only glimpsed as a shadow the night before. It was perfect, smooth as glass, except for the occasional trout leaping after its breakfast, sending circles of miniature waves radiating across the deep blue surface until they were absolutely slowly absorbed back into the larger surface. He estimated the far side was about a half mile away. Dew sparkled everywhere, diamond-like tears of the early morning reflecting the sun's love. The three canoes resting easily at intervals along the dock looking inviting, but Max shrugged off the thought. Canoes were no longer a joy. Too many bad memories. The dock reminded him of the night before. Had he really lain out there with one who made the universe? Max shook his head dumbfounded. What was going on here? Who were they really, and what did they want from him? Whatever it was, he was sure he didn't have it to give. The smell of eggs and bacon mixed with something else curled into his room, interrupting his thoughts. Mac decided it was time to emerge and speak for his share. As he entered the main living area, he heard the sound of a familiar Bruce Cockburn tune drifting from the kitchen and a high-pitched black woman singing along rather well. Oh, love that fires the sun, keep me burning. Papa emerged with plates in hand, full of pancakes and fried potatoes and greens of some sort. She was dressed in a long flowing African looking garment, complete with a vibrant multicolored headband. She looked radiant, almost glowing. You know, she exclaimed, I love that child's song. I am especially fond of Bruce, you know. She looked over at Mack, who was just sitting down at the table. Mack nodded, his appetite increasing by the second. Yep, she continued, and I know you like him too. Mack smiled. It was true. Cockburn had been a family favorite for years. First his and Nan's, and then each of the children to one degree or another. So, honey, Papa asked, continually busy with whatever she was doing, how were your dreams last night? Dreams are sometimes important, you know. They can be a way of opening up the window and letting the bad air out. Mac knew this was an invitation to unlock the door into his terrors, but at the moment he wasn't ready to invite her into that hole with him. I slept fine, thank you, he responded, and then quickly changed the subject. Is he your favorite? Bruce, I mean. She stopped and looked at him. Mackenzie, I have no favorites. I'm just especially fond of him. You seem to be especially fond of a lot of people, Mac observed with a suspicious look. Are there any who you are not especially fond of? She lifted her head and rolled her eyes as if she were mentally going through the catalog of every being ever created. Nope, I haven't been able to find any. Guess that's just the way I is. Mac was interested. Do you ever get mad at any of them? Sure enough. What parents doesn't? There's a lot to be mad about in the mess my kids have made and in the mess they're in. I don't like a lot of choices they make, but that anger, especially for me, is an expression of love all the same. I love the ones I'm angry with just as much as I of those I'm not. But, Mac paused, what about your wrath? It seems to me that if you're going to pretend to be God Almighty, you need to be a lot angrier. Do I now? That's what I think. Weren't you always running around killing people in the Bible? You just don't seem to fit the bill. I understand how disorienting all this must be for you, Mac. But the only one pretending here is you. I am what I am. I'm not trying to fit anyone's bill. But you're asking me to believe that you're God, and I just don't see it. Mac had no idea how to finish his sentence, so he just gave up. I'm not asking you to believe anything, but I will tell you that you're going to find this day a lot easier if you simply accept what is, instead of trying to fit it in your preconceived notions. But if you're God, aren't you the one spilling out great bowls of wrath and throwing people into a burning lake of fire? Mac could feel his deep anger emerging again, pushing out the questions in front of it, and he was a little chagrined at his own lack of self control. But he asked anyway. Honestly, don't you enjoy punishing those who disappoint you? At that, Papa stopped her preparations and turned toward Mac. He could see a deep sadness in her eyes. I'm not who you think I am, Mackenzie. I don't need to punish people for sin. Sin is its own punishment, devouring you from the inside. It's not my purpose to punish it. It's my joy to cure it. I don't understand. You're right, you don't, she said with a smile still sad around its edges. But then again, we're not done yet. Just then, Jesus and Sarayu entered laughing through the back door, involved in their own conversation. Jesus came in dressed much like the day before, just jeans and a light blue button-down shirt that made his brown eyes stand out. Sarayu, on the other hand, was clothed in something so fine and lacy that it fairly flowed at the slightest breeze or spoken word. Rainbow patterns shimmered and reshaped with her every gesture. Mac wondered if she ever completely stopped moving. He rather doubted it. Papa leaned down to eye level with Mac. You raised some important questions, and we'll get around to them, I promise. But now, let's enjoy breakfast together. Mac nodded, again a little embarrassed as he turned his attention to the food. He was hungry anyway, and there was plenty to eat. Thank you for breakfast, he told Papa while Jesus and Sarayu were taking their seats. What? She said in mock horror. You aren't even going to bow your head and close your eyes? She began walking towards the kitchen, grumbling as she went. Tis, tis, tis. What is the world coming to? You're welcome, honey. As she waved over her shoulder, she returned a moment later with still another bowl of steaming something that smelled wonderful and inviting. They passed the food to one another, and Mac was spellbound, watching and listening as Papa joined in the conversation Jesus and Sorry you were having. It had something to do with reconciling an estranged family, but it wasn't what they were talking about that captured Mac. It was how they were related. He never had seen three people share with such simplicity and beauty. Each seemed more aware of the others than of themselves. So, what do you think, Mac? Jesus asked, gesturing toward him. I have no idea what you're talking about, said Mac with his mouth half full of the very tasty greens, but I love the way that you do it. Whoa, said Papa, who had returned from the kitchen with yet another dish. Take it easy on those greens, young man. Those things can give you the trots if you ain't careful. All right, said Mac. I'll try to remember, as he reached for the dish in her hand. Then turning back to Jesus, he added, I love the way you treat each other. It's certainly not how I expected God to be. How do you mean? Well, I know that you are one and all, and that there are three of you, but you respond with such graciousness to each other. Isn't one of you more the boss than the other two? The three looked at one another as if they had never thought of such a question. I mean, Mac hurried on, I've always thought of God the Father as sort of being the boss and Jesus as the one following orders, being obedient. I'm not sure how the Holy Spirit fits in exactly. She, Mac tried not to look at Sarah Yu as he stumbled for words. Whatever. The spirit always seemed kind of a free spirit, offered Papa. Exactly, a free spirit, but still under the direction of the Father. Does that make sense? Jesus looked over at Papa, obviously trying with some difficulty to maintain the perception of a very serious exterior. Does that make sense to you, Abba? Frankly, I haven't a clue what this man is talking about. Papa scrunched her face up as if exerting great concentration. Nope, I've been trying to make head or tail out of it, but sorry, he's got me lost. You know what I'm talking about. Mac was a little frustrated. I'm talking about who's in charge. Don't you have a chain of command? Chain of command? That sounds ghastly, Jesus said. At least binding, Papa added as they both started laughing. And then Papa turned to Mac and said, though chains be of gold, they are chains all the same. Now don't concern yourself with those two, Saru interrupted, reaching out her hand to comfort and calm him. They're just playing with you. This is actually a subject of interest among us. Mac nodded, relieved and a little chagrined that he had again allowed himself to lose his composure. Mackenzie, we have no concept of final authority among us, only unity. We are in a circle of relationship, not a chain of command or great chain of being, as your ancestors termed it. What you're seeing here is relationship without any overlay of power. We don't need power over the other because we are always looking out for the best. Hierarchy would make no sense among us. Actually, this is your problem, not ours. Really? How so? Humans are so lost and damaged that to you, it is almost incomprehensible that people could work or live together without someone being in charge. But every human institution that I can think of, from political to business, even down to marriage, is governed by this kind of thinking. It is the web of our social fabric, Mac asserted. Such a waste, said Papa, picking up the empty dish and heading for the kitchen. It's no reason why experiencing true relationship is so difficult for you, Jesus added. Once you have a hierarchy, you need rules to protect and administer it. And then you need law and the enforcement of the laws. And you end up with some kind of chain of command or a system of order that destroys relationships rather than promotes it. You rarely see or experience relationship apart from power. Hierarchy imposes laws and rules, and you end up missing the wonder of relationship that we intended for you. Well, said Max sarcastically, sitting back in his chair, we sure seem to have adapted pretty well to it. Sarah Yu was quick to reply. Don't confuse adaptation for intention or seduction for reality. So then, could you please pass a bit more of those greens? So then we've been seduced into this preoccupation with authority. In a sense, yes, responded Papa, passing Mac the platter of greens, but not letting go until he pulled twice. I'm just looking out for you, son. Saru continued, when you choose independence over relationship, you become a danger to each other. Others became objects to be manipulated or managed for your own happiness. Authority, as you usually think of it, is merely the excuse the strong use to make others conform to what they want. Isn't it helpful in keeping people from fighting endlessly or getting hurt? Sometimes, but in a selfish world, it is also used to inflict great harm. But don't you use it to restrain evil? We carefully respect your choices, so we work within your systems even while we seek to free you from them. Papa continued. Creation has been taken down a very different path than we desired. In your world, the value of the individual is constantly weighed against the survival of the system, whether political, economic, social, or religious. Any system actually, first one person, then a few, and finally, even many as are easily sacrificed for the good and ongoing existence of that system. In one form or another, this lies behind every struggle for power, every prejudice, every war, and every abusive relationship. The will to power and independence has become so ubiquitous that it is now considered normal. It's not. It is the human paradigm, added Papa, having returned with more food. It is like water to fish, so prevalent that it goes unseen and unquestioned. It is the matrix, a diabolical scheme in which you are hopelessly trapped even while completely unaware of its existence. Jesus picked up the conversation. As the crowning glory of creation, you were made in our image, unencumbered by structure and free to simply be in relationship with me and one another. If you had truly learned to regard each other's concerns as significant as your own, there would be no need for hierarchy. Max sat back in his chair, staggered by the implications of what he was hearing. So, are you telling me that whenever we humans protect ourselves with power, you are yielding to the matrix, not to us, finished Jesus. And now, Sarah, you interjected, we have come full circle back to one of my initial statements. You humans are so lost and damaged that to you it is almost incomprehensible that relationship could exist apart from hierarchy. So you think that God must relate inside of a hierarchy like you do, but we do not. But how could we ever change that? People will just use us. They most likely will. But we're not asking you to do it with others, Mac. We're asking you to do it with us. That's the only place it can begin. We won't use you. Mac, said Papa with an intensity that caused him to listen very carefully. We want to share with you the love and joy and freedom and light that we already know within ourselves. We created you, the human, to be in face-to-face relationship with us, to join our circle of love. As difficult as it will be for you to understand, everything that has taken place is occurring exactly according to this purpose, without violating choice or will. How can you say that with all the pain in this world, all the wars and disasters that destroy thousands? Mac's voice quieted to a whisper. And what is the value in a little girl being murdered by some twisted deviant? There it was again, the question that lay burning a hole in his soul. You may not cause those things, but you certainly don't stop them. Mackenzie, Papa answered tenderly, seemingly not offended in the least by his accusation. There are millions of reasons to allow pain and hurt and suffering rather than to eradicate them. But most of those reasons can only be understood within each person's story. I am not evil. You are the ones who embrace fear and pain and power and right so readily in your relationships. but your choices are also not stronger than my purposes. And I will use every choice you make for the ultimate good and the most loving outcome. You see, interjected Sarayu, broken humans center their lives around things that seem good to them, but that will neither fill them nor free them. They are addicted to power or the illusion of security that power offers. When a disaster happens, those same people will turn against the false powers they trusted. In their disappointment, they either become softened toward me or they become bolder in their independence. If you could only see how all of this ends and what we will achieve without the violation of one human will, then you would understand. One day you will. What the cost? Mack was staggered. Look at the cost, all the pain, all the suffering, everything that is so terrible and evil. He paused and looked down at the table. And look what it has cost you. Is it worth it? Yes, came the unanimous, joyful response of all three. But how can you say that? Mack blurted. It all sounds like the end justifies the means. That to get what you want, that to get what you want, you will go to any length, even if it costs the lives of billions of people. Mackenzie, it was the voice of Papa again, especially gentle and tender. You really don't understand yet. You try to make sense of the world in which you live based on a very small and incomplete picture of reality. It is like looking at a parade through the tiny knothole of hurt, pain, self centeredness, and power, and believing you are on your own and insignificant. All of these contain powerful laws. You see pain and death as ultimate evils, and God as the ultimate betrayer, or perhaps at best, as fundamentally untrustworthy. You dictate the terms and judge my actions and find me guilty. The real underlying flaws in your life, Mackenzie, is that you don't think that I am good. If you knew I was good and that everything, I mean, the means, the ends, and all of the processes of individual lives is all covered by my goodness, then while you might not always understand what I'm doing, you would trust me. But you don't. I don't? Asked Mack. But it was really not a question. It was a statement of fact, and he knew it. The others seemed to know it too, and the table remained silent. Sarah, you spoke. Mackenzie, you cannot produce trust just like you cannot do humility. It either is or is not. Trust is the fruit of a relationship in which you know you are loved. Because you do not know that I love you, you cannot trust me. Again, there was silence. And finally, Mack looked at Papa and spoke. I don't know how to change that. You can't, not alone. But together we will watch that change take place. For now, I just want you to be with me and discover that our relationship is not about performance or you having to please me. I'm not a bully, not some self centered, demanding little deity insisting on my own way. I am good, and I desire only what is best for you. You cannot find that through guilt or condemnation or coercion, only through a relationship of love. And I do love you. Sarah, you stood up from the table and looked directly at Mack. Mackenzie, she offered, if you care to, I would like you to come and help me in the garden. There are things I need to do there before tomorrow's celebration. We can continue relevant elements of this conversation there, please. Sure, responded Mack and excused himself from the table. One last comment, he nodded, turning back. I just can't imagine any final outcome that would justify all this. Mackenzie, Papa rose out of her chair and walked around the table to give him a big squeeze. We're not justifying it. We are redeeming it. Wow. That was chapter 8, you all. Man, that was good. Oh, man. Man, he asked some very, very real questions, though, because we all met God, quote unquote, introduced. We were introduced to who man sees God to be from a young age, you all. We, in one form or another, we were. And so, whether that introduction was one of accuracy, or was it from that person's or those people perspective? And did that perspective just take legs and grow generation after generation? Not knowing whether it was true or not, we just found ourselves gravitating towards it for one reason or another because we were told to, or we were conditioned to, or we were made to believe, we were coerced to, or whatever the case. But I am convinced, even in my own journey, but prior to reading this book, I'm convinced that a lot of us don't really know God for who God really, really is. I'm convinced of that. I learned that in my own journey. I learned that. And when I learned God, truly, source, infinite intelligence, not just man, but man, woman, all things, infinite being, creator, almighty, all powerful. When I learned infinite love, infinite peace, when I learned all that God is, and still learning because it's infinite, the details, the description is infinite. There is no singular, linear definition of who and what God is. God is. That's it. God is. I am. Simply, that's it. Whatever. I am whatever. I am air. I'm water. I'm nature. I'm dog. I'm cat. I'm sun. I'm moon. I'm stars. I'm planets. I'm galaxies. I'm universes. I am. I am. I am. I am. I am. And in you, I am. My goodness. That's the vastness of. And even if we lived 10,000 lives, we would never be able to accurately depict and describe all that God is. So to be given a very small pinpoint, a pin-sized description of God is it's so inaccurate. Oh my goodness. And that's what we've carried with us generation after generation. That's why it's imperative for us to know God for ourselves. Reconnect for yourself. Not going off of hearsay or what mama and them and know God for yourself. What is, who is, how is, why is, where is, when is God, all of that. Know it for yourself. You can only do that by going within and connecting with the God in you, because in you resides God. You are the embodiment of that very source. That's, yeah, man. Okay, chapter 9. A long time ago in a garden far, far away. There's a quote here by Henry Van Dyke that states, "Even should we find another Eden, we would not be fit to enjoy it perfectly nor stay in it forever." We would not be fit. My goodness. Mack followed Sarayu as best he could out the back door and down the walkway past the rows of firs. To walk behind such a being was like tracking a sunbeam. Light seemed to radiate through her and then reflect her presence in multiple places at once. Her nature was rather ethereal, full of dynamic shades and hues of color and motion. No wonder so many people are a little unnerved at relating to her, Mack thought. She obviously is not a being who is predictable. Mack concentrated instead on staying on the walkway. As he rounded the trees, he saw for the first time, a magnificent garden, an orchard somehow contained within a plot of land hardly larger than an acre. For whatever reason, Mack had expected a perfectly manicured and ordered English garden. This was not that. It was chaos in color. His eyes tried unsuccessfully to find some order in this blatant disregard for certainty. Dazzling sprays of flowers were blasted through patches of randomly planted vegetables and herbs, vegetation like the likes of which Mack had never seen. It was confusing, stunning, and incredibly beautiful. From above, it's a fractal, Sarayu said over her shoulder with an air of pleasure. Oh, what? Asked Mack absent-mindedly, his mind still trying to grapple with and control the pandemonium of sight and the movements of hues and shades. Every step he took changed whatever patterns he for an instant thought he had seen, and nothing was like it. Nothing was like it had been. A fractal, something considered simply and orderly, that is actually composed of repeated patterns no matter how magnified. A fractal is almost infinitely complex. I love fractals, so I put them everywhere. Looks like a mess to me, muttered Mack under his breath. Sarayu stopped and turned to Mack, her face glorious. Mack, thank you. What a wonderful compliment. She looked around at the garden. This is exactly what this is, a mess. But she looked back at Mack and beamed. It's still a fractal, too. Sarayu walked straight to a certain herb plant, plucked some heads of it, and turned to Mack. Here, she said, her voice sounding more like music than anything else. Papa wasn't kidding at breakfast. You'd better chew on these greens for a few minutes. It will counteract the natural movement of the ones you overindulged in earlier, if you know what I mean. Mack chuckled as he accepted and carefully began to chew. Yeah, but those greens tasted so good. His stomach had begun to roll a little, and being kept off balance by the verdant wildness he had stepped into was not helping. Okay. The flavor of the herb was not distasteful. A hint of mint and some other spices he had probably smelled before but couldn't identify. As they walked, the growling in his stomach slowly began to subside, and he relaxed what he hadn't realized had been his clenching. Without speaking a word, he tried to follow Sarayu from place to place within the garden, but found himself easily distracted by the blends of colors: currant and vermilion, reds, tangerine, and chartreuse divided by platinum and fuchsia, as well as innumerable shades of greens and browns. It was all wonderfully bewildering and intoxicating. Sarayu seemed to be intently focused on a particular task, but like her name, she wafted about like a playful eddying wind, and he never quite knew which way she was blowing. He found it rather difficult to keep up with her. It reminded him of trying to follow Nan in a mall. She moved through the garden, snipping off various flowers and herbs and handing them to Mack to carry. The makeshift bouquet grew quite large, a pungent mass of perfume. The mixtures of aromatic spices were unlike anything he had ever smelled, and they were so strong he could almost taste them. They deposited the final bouquet inside the door of a small garden shop that Mack had not noticed before, buried as it was in a thicket of wild growth, including vines and what Mack thought were weeds. One task done, Sarayu announced, and one to go. She handed Mack a shovel, rake, a sieve, and pair of gloves, and floated out and down a particular overgrown path that seemed to go in the general direction of the far end of the garden. Along the way, she would occasionally slow to touch this plant or that flower, all the while humming the haunting tune that Mack had been captivated by the evening before. He followed obediently, carrying the tools he had been given and trying to keep her in sight while wondering at his surroundings. When she stopped, Mack almost ran into her, distracted as he was looking around. Somehow she had changed, now dressed in work clothes, jeans with wild designs, and a work shirt and gloves. They were in an area that could have been an orchard, but not really. Regardless, the place they stood was an open spot surmounted on three sides by peach and cherry trees, and the middle was a cascade of purple and yellow flowered bushes that almost took his breath away. Mackenzie, she pointed directly at the incredible purple and yellow patch. I would like your help clearing this entire plot of ground. There's something very special that I want to plant here tomorrow, and we need to get ready. She looked at Mack and reached for the sieve. You can't be serious. This is so gorgeous and such a secluded spot. But Sarayu didn't even notice. Without further explanation, she turned and began destroying the artistic display of flowers. She cut cleanly, seemingly without any effort. Max shrugged, donned his gloves, and began raking into piles the havoc she was wreaking. He struggled to keep up. It might be a strain for her, but for him, it was labor. 20 minutes later, the plants were all cut off at the roots, and the plot looked like a wound in the garden. Mack's forearms were etched with cut marks from the branches he had piled in one spot. He was out of breath and sweating, glad to be finished. Sarah, you stood over the plot, examining their handiwork. Isn't this exhilarating? She asked. I've been exhilarated in better ways, Mack retorted sarcastically. Oh, Mackenzie, if you only knew. It's not the work, but the purpose that makes it special. And, she smiled at him, it's the only kind I do. Mack leaned on his rake and looked around the garden and then at the red welts on his arms. Sarayu, I know you are the creator, but did you make the poisonous plants, stinging nettles and mosquitoes too? Mackenzie, responded Sarayu, seeming to move in tandem with the breezes. A created being can only take what already exists and from its fashion something different. So you are saying that you created everything that actually exists, including what you consider the bad stuff. Sarayu completed his sentence. But when I created it, it was only good because that is just the way I am. She seemed to almost billow into a curtsy before resuming her task. But, Matt continued, not satisfied, then why has so much of the good gone bad? Now, Sarayu paused before answering. You humans, so little in your own eyes. You are truly blind to your own place in the creation. Having chosen the ravaged path of independence, you don't even comprehend that you are dragging the entire creation along with you. She shook her head and the wind sighed through the trees nearby. So very sad, but it won't be this way forever. They enjoyed a few moments of silence as Mack looked back toward the various plants that he could see from where they were standing. So, are there plants in this garden that are poisonous? He asked. Oh, yes, explained Sarayu. They are some of my favorites. Some are even dangerous to the touch, like this one. She reached for a nearby bush and snapped off something that looked like a dead stick with only a few tiny leaves budding from the stem. She handed it to Mack, who raised both hands to avoid touching it. Sarayu laughed. I'm here, Mack. There are times when it is safe to touch and times when precautions must be taken. That is the wonder and adventure of exploration, a piece of what you call science, to discern and discover what we have hidden for you to find. So why did you hide it? Mack inquired. Why do children love to hide and seek? Ask any person who has a passion to explore and discover and create. The choice to hide so many wonders from you is an act of love that is a gift inside the process of life. Mack gingerly reached out and took the poisonous twig. If you had not told me this was safe to touch, would it be poisoned? Would it have poisoned me? Of course. But if I direct you to touch, that is different. For any created being, autonomy is lunacy. Freedom involves trust and obedience inside of a relationship of love. So if you're not hearing my voice, it would be wise to take the time to understand the nature of the plant. So why create poisonous plants at all? Mack queried, handing back the twig. Your question presumes that poison is bad, that such creations have no purpose. Many of these so called bad things, bad plants, like this one, contain incredible properties for healing or are necessary for some of the most magnificent wonders when combined with something else. Humans have a great capacity for declaring something good or evil without truly knowing. Obviously, the short break, which had been for Mack's sake, was over, and Sarayu thrust a hand shovel at Mack, picking up the rake. To prepare this ground, we must dig up the roots of all the wonderful growth that was here. It was hard work, but well worth it. If the roots are not here, then they cannot do what comes naturally and harm the seed we will plant. Okay, Matt grunted as they both got down on their knees alongside the freshly cleared plot. Sarayu was somehow able to reach deep under the ground and find the ends of the roots, bringing them effortlessly to the surface. She left the shorter ones for Mack, who used the hand shovel to dig under and pull them up. They then shook the dirt from the roots and threw them onto one of the piles that Mack had earlier raked together. I'll burn those later, she said. You were talking earlier about humans declaring good and evil without knowledge, Mack asked, shaking another root of his dirt. Yes, I was specifically talking about the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil? Yes, asked Mack. Exactly, she stated, seeming to almost expand and contract for emphasis while she worked. And now, Mackenzie, you are beginning to see why eating the deadly fruit of that tree was so devastating to your race. I've never given it much thought, really, said Mack, intrigued by the direction their chat was taking. So, was there really an actual garden? I mean, Eden and all of that? Of course. I told you I have a thing for gardens. That's going to bother some people. There are lots of people who think it was only a myth. Well, their mistake isn't fatal. Rumors of glory are often hidden inside of what many consider myths and tales. Oh, I've got some friends who are not going to like this, Mack observed as he wrestled with a particular stubborn root. No matter, I myself am very fond of them. I'm so surprised, Mack said a little sarcastically and smiled in her direction. Okay, then. He drove his shovel into the dirt, grabbed the root above it with his hand. So tell me about the tree of knowledge of good and evil. This is what we're talking about at breakfast, she responded. Let me begin by asking you a question. When something happens to you, how do you determine whether it is good or evil? Mac thought for a moment before answering. Well, I haven't really thought about that. I guess I would say that something is good when I like it, when it makes me feel good or gives me a sense of security. Conversely, I call something evil that causes me pain or costs me something I want. So it is pretty subjective then. I guess it is. And how confident are you in your ability to discern what indeed is good for you or what is evil? To be honest, said Mac, I tend to sound justifiably angry when somebody is threatening my good, you know, what I think I deserve. But I'm not really sure I have any logical ground for deciding what is actually good or evil, except how something or someone affects me. He paused to rest and catch his breath for a moment. All seems quite self serving and self centered, I suppose. And my record isn't very encouraging either. Some things I initially thought were good turned out to be horribly destructive. And some things I thought were evil, well, they turned out. He hesitated before finishing his thought. But Sarah, you interrupted. Then it is you who determines good and evil. You become the judge. And to make things more confusing, that which you determine to be good will change over time and circumstance. And then beyond that, and even worse, there are billions of you who each determining what is good and what is evil. So when your good and evil clashes with your neighbors, fights and arguments ensue, and even wars break out. The colors moving within Sarayu were darkening as she spoke, blacks and grays merging and shadowing the rainbow hues. And if there is no reality of good that is absolute, then you have lost any basis for judging. It is just language, and one might as well exchange the word good for the word evil. I can see where that might be a problem, Mac agreed. A problem? Sarah, you almost snapped as she stood up and faced him. She was disturbed, but he knew that it was not directed at him. Indeed, the choice to eat of that tree tore the universe apart, divorcing the spirit from the physical. They died, expelling in the breath of their choice the very breath of God. I would say that is a problem. In the intensity of her speaking, Sarayu had risen slowly off the ground, but now as she settled back, her voice came quiet but distinct. That was a great sorrow day. Neither of them spoke for almost 10 minutes while they worked. As he continued digging up roots and throwing them into the pile, Mac's mind busily worked to untangle the implications of what he had said. Finally, he broke the silence. I can see now, confessed Mac, that I spend most of my time and energy trying to acquire what I have determined to be good, whether it's financial security or health or retirement or whatever. And I spend a huge amount of energy and worry fearing what I've determined to be evil. Max sighed deeply. Such truth in that, said Sarayu gently. Remember this. It allows you to play God in your independence. That's why a part of you prefers not to see me. And you don't need me at all to create your list of good and evil. But you do need me if you have any desire to stop such an insane lust for independence. So there's a way to fix it, asked Mack. You must give up your right to decide what is good and evil on your own terms. That is a hard pill to swallow. Choosing to only live in me. To do that, you must know me enough to trust me and learn to rest in my inherent goodness. Sorry, you turned toward Mack. At least that was his impression. Mackenzie, evil is a word we use to describe the absence of good, just as we use the word darkness to describe the absence of light, or death to describe the absence of life. But evil and darkness can only be understood in relation to light and good. They do not have any actual existence. I am light and I am good. I am love and there is no darkness in me. Light and good actually exist. So removing yourself from me will plunge you into darkness. Declaring independence will result in evil because apart from me, you can only draw upon yourself. That is death because you have separated yourself from me, life. Wow, Mack exclaimed, sitting back for a moment. That really helps. But I can also see that giving up my independent right is not going to be an easy process. It could mean that, Sarah, you interrupted his sentence again, that in one instance, the good may be the presence of cancer or the loss of income or even life. Yeah, but tell that to the person with cancer or the father whose daughter is dead. Mack postured, a little more sarcastically than he had intended. Oh, Mackenzie, reassured Sarayu, don't you think we have them in mind as well? Each of them was the center of another story that was untold. But Mack could feel his control getting away as he drove his shovel in hard. Didn't Missy have a right to be protected? No, Mack. A child is protected because she is loved, not because she has a right to be protected. That stopped him. Somehow, what Sarayu had just been saying seemed to turn the whole world upside down, and he was struggling to find something footing. Surely there were some rights that he could legitimately hold on to. But what about rights are where survivors go so that that they won't have to work out relationships, she cut in. But if I gave up, then you would begin to know the wonder and adventure of living in me, she interrupted him again. Mack was getting frustrated. He spoke louder. But don't I have the right to complete a sentence without being interrupted? No, you don't. Not in reality. But as long as you think you do, you will surely get ticked off when someone cuts you off, even if it is God. He was stunned and stood up, staring at her, not knowing whether to rage or laugh. Sarah, you smiled at him. Mackenzie, Jesus didn't hold on to any rights. He willingly became a servant and lives out of his relationship to Papa. He gave up everything so that by his dependent life, he opened the door that would allow you to live free enough to give up your rights. At that moment, Papa emerged down the walkway carrying two paper sacks. She was smiling as she approached. Well, you two having a good conversation, I assume. She winked at Mack. The best, exclaimed Sarayu. And guess what? He called our garden a mess. Isn't that perfect? They both beamed broadly at Mack, who still wasn't absolutely sure he wasn't being played with. His anger was subsiding, but he could still feel the burning in his cheeks. The other two seemed to take notice. Sarayu reached up and kissed Papa on the cheek. As always, your timing is perfect. Everything that I needed Mackenzie to do here is finished. She turned to him. Mackenzie, you are such a delight. Thank you for all your hard work. I didn't do that much, really, he apologized. I mean, look at this mess. His gaze moved over the garden that surrounded him. But it really is beautiful and full of you. Sarayu. Even though it seems like lots of work still needs to be done, I feel strangely at home and comfortable here. The two looked at each other and grinned. Sarayu stepped toward him until she had invaded his personal space. And well, you should, Mackenzie, because this garden is your soul. This mess is you. Together, you and I, we have been working with a purpose in your heart, and it is wild and beautiful and perfectly in process. To you, it seems like a mess, but to me, I see a perfect pattern emerging and growing and alive, a living fractal. The impact of her words almost crumbled all of Mack's reserve. He looked again at their garden, his garden, and it really was a mess, but incredible and wonderful at the same time. And beyond that, Papa was here, and sorry you loved the mess. It was almost too much to comprehend, and once again, his carefully guarded emotions threatened to spill over. Mackenzie, Jesus would like to take you for a walk if you want to go. I packed you a picnic lunch in case you get a little hungry. It'll tide you over till the tea time. As Mack turned to accept the lunch bags, he felt Sarayu slip by, kissing his cheek as she passed by. But he didn't even see her go. Like the wind, he thought he could see her path, the plants bending in turn as if in worship. When he turned back, Papa also almost gone, so he headed toward the workshop to see if he could find Jesus. It seemed they had an appointment. Wow. Oh my goodness. As I'm reading, that's the end of chapter 9, by the way. As I'm reading, hey D, hi D, watching on YouTube. How are you, my love? Thank you for being here. Oh my goodness, as I was reading that, especially that last portion where you said to Mack, yeah, this is a mess, but this garden is you. This garden is your heart. So what he didn't even realize was that he was pulling up the dead roots and pulling up and tending to the garden of his heart. He had no idea. When she pointed to him and said, this garden, this is your heart. We've been pruning your heart. Absolutely. And when he called it a mess, this is correct. This is your heart that you deemed a mess. But with your help in mind, we are pruning it. And we're making it even more beautiful. We're making room. They pulled out all of the old weeds, all of the dead things, and making room for new seeds to be planted, for new flowers to be bloomed. That was something. So as I was reading that, my eyes were kind of tearing up. So I might have had a little reading interference there, but my goodness. Okay, you all. So that is the end of those chapters that we had to come back and reread. Okay, this is the encore presentation of this past Sunday's session here, and we are reading through the amazing book, The Shack, you all. Thank you so much for listening. For those who are listening, if you're listening in real time, that's amazing. If you're listening on the replay, thank you for being here on the replay. We appreciate you. At any point, if you want to join us in our book reading, you are feel free to do so. You can just send us an email for the ebooks that we're reading. It is free to you. You're not obligated to pay anything. We are indeed a nonprofit organization, so we do accept donations for our nonprofit, but they are not required. They are welcome, but they are not required for you to receive the reading material. In every book that we're reading on our journey here in Divine Femininity United, there's always an ebook accompanied that you have access to for free. You just have to request it via email to this email address on the screen. For those who are watching via the video, for those on Clubhouse, it is info at biancamissblee.com. That is info at biancamissblee.com. Those on Clubhouse too, as you can see right above my head, you can tap the link there. It'll send you directly to my website, and you can put your information there, send a message by way of the website as well, requesting your copy of the reading material, The Shack. Okay, right now The Shack, but any other book that we've ever read, you have access to that as well without any type of fee or cost to you. Okay, it is our pleasure to give that to you. Visit the website. For those who are on the video, our website is biancamissblee.com. Again, on Clubhouse is right above my head. Just tap that link and you'll be right there. All right. For those who are watching via video, it's on the screen. Also, follow me on social media: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Clubhouse, Twitter, everywhere you can find, everywhere there's a social media app, I am there. Dr. Bianca Miss B. Lee. Okay. Again, Dr. Bianca Miss B. Lee. You'll find me there. Okay. On TikTok as well, Dr. Bianca Miss B. Lee. So I thank you all for joining me again on this encore presentation of our book, Reading the Shack. I'm so excited to be caught up. We will be reading tomorrow chapters 10 and 11, which I'm super excited about. I think chapter 10 is, let's see, let's go to chapter 10. Chapter 10 is called Wade in the Water. Wade in the Water. And then the chapter 11, I think, is a funny chapter. It is. Hold on, let's see. Here come the judge. So chapter 10 is Wade in the Water. Chapter 11 is Here come the judge, and it's spelled D-A. Here come the judge. That's funny. I think there's a song, Here come the judge. Here come the judge. Here come the judge. So we're going to be going into those chapters tomorrow. Feel free to join us. We would love to have you. We will be airing live at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sundays, and then Tuesdays we are airing 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, we would love for you to join us on our journey through this wonderful, beautiful reading. I'm telling you, I'm learning so much, man. Oh my goodness, I'm learning so much. It's so many nuggets in this that is absolutely mind blowing. Okay, join us. You are more than welcome. Until tomorrow, you all. I'm going to send you back to your families, your friends, yourselves, your rest, your quiet time, your relaxation time, your shows, or your peace and just meditation. However, you're dancing, you're singing, whatever you choose to do on this beautiful Saturday night. I'm going to return you back there. Okay. And as per usual, as I say all the time, I love you. I mean it. There is absolutely, positively nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing that you can do about it. Don't you even try it. We'll see you back here on tomorrow, right here at Divine Femininity United. Peace.